The Distopya Sound Art Festival has already its fourth iteration. So this is the fourth time that the Sound Art Festival has happened. The idea for Distopia was a brainstorming process by the Errant Sound Artist Collective in Berlin with the help of Georg Klein, who's a renowned sound artist. And the concept was basically to take topical themes and to use them in sound art. So it seemed that every time we have a sound art festival around the theme of dystopia, things become more dystopian in the world. I'll just try to explain. So in 2018, the theme was about climate change, about global warming, about catastrophe, about authoritarian regimes, about war, about migration, and now it's become more about other things like artificial intelligence. But every time that we've had the Distopia Sound Art Festival, we've found more themes. And basically, so what we did was we had the first Distopia Sound Art Festival was in 2018, which was sponsored by Errant Sound and the Goethe Institute, and also Miam Itu, where I teach. And the second one was here in Istanbul, also with the same partners. And this time around, we want to expand the concept to include the things that we're all experiencing, such as the pandemic and all the things that amplifies and causes in the everyday. So sound art has a history of being about the everyday, which has two reasons for it. One is that it deals with media, that the history of sound art has to do with the invention of plastic digital media. And the way that sound works in art is sort of the same way that it works in cinema. It fills in a kind of sculptural space, a kind of virtual space, which is lacking from the visual. So it's a very immersive art form, and that has an even more power to confront with virtual realities and the idea of artificial realities and the idea of what is the fabric of reality. And so it seems perfect really for the theme of dystopia, where you can also think about a movie like The Matrix. So in a way that we're all kind of sleepwalking through life, and we have all of these dystopian things that we're confronted with, and how do we deal with them? And there's multiple solutions to that, and there's a whole philosophy about dystopia as a kind of fiction, that the dystopian part is both the flip side of utopia, but also kind of the beginning of a fiction, where the most important part of the dystopian fiction is what happens after it. And each artwork kind of tells a different story about what happens after a dystopia or after a kind of dystopian cataclysm. So we were looking for artists who we already know through our previous work in the Distopia Sound Art Festival, but also new artists whose work deals with these kinds of themes. We were looking for artists who question the nature of reality, and artists who give a feeling in their artwork of the uncanny effects of everyday objects and everyday situations that we come into contact with, in terms of the way that the world is rapidly changing and the way that media and the internet affect our daily lives and the way that we perceive ourselves and others. One of the unique facts of dealing with a gallery space where there's sound is that it's impossible to keep everything separate. So all the effects of the sound combine, and also some pieces affect other pieces. So the sound becomes a total sound for the gallery space, and not only discrete artworks which remain separate from each other in their own world. So it's quite a challenge to combine them, and we were looking for artworks that kind of react to each other in certain ways. So for example, downstairs we have a piece by Chelsea Leventhal who deals with kind of borders and spaces where there's borders that create tension for the ways that those borders are transgressed or transversed in terms of dystopian themes in migration or dystopian themes in political communication between institutions and countries. And that is making a certain kind of sound which is an ambient sound. And then we have another sound which is kind of a pseudo voice, a kind of pseudo communication by Hans-Peter Kuhn, who has created kind of a metaphor, an effigy for the internet, which is when you go on the internet, you get constant information thrown at you. And it's so much information that it seems like it should be extremely informative, but at the end of it, the problem is that it's very hard to understand and that it's contradictory, and it winds up being almost like an overflow of nonsense. So you have this voice, and then you have more of an ambient soundscape, and then you have a work which is interactive in that it's listening to the sound, which is a kind of artificial brain built by Georg Werner, who's an artist in Berlin. Chelsea Leventhal's from the United States, and Hans-Peter Kuhn is also living in Berlin. But at any rate, he has a mechanical kind of brain which lights up according to different sounds that are in the room. So we've set it up so that they're all interacting with each other and hopefully with the visitors to the gallery as well. In a separate area, there's video works, 2 and 4 channel video works, and the sound of those are also coming into the space, but we have the border there to the video space so that it's also another kind of border to cross. So all of these things are, combining to have the visitor have a kind of narrative of dystopias and utopias that they can deal with in different sorts of ways to understand different aspects that we're interested in, that the artists want to portray. So that the videos, for example, we have a work by Brandon LaBelle. Brandon LaBelle deals with spaces that are abandoned in the urban landscape, which connects to themes of urban development and urban decay, which is a big theme in dystopia. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways that we've tied it in and tried to find the appropriate artists for this theme. But it's very interesting because a lot of artists who only think of themselves as trying to help and only think of themselves as portraying possible utopias wind up being the most appropriate for a dystopian sound art festival because they're using all the themes such as climate change and disinformation, communication breakdown, political borders, and so on. So it's a very interesting way of dealing with fiction that it can flip so easily. So we see that not only in the meaning of dystopias, but also in the way that the artist has to struggle with these themes, with the way that they use material. So it kind of happens almost naturally for the artists. As soon as we've given this theme, whether they're more concentrated on dystopian fictions or on utopian fictions, there's always a way that it's possible to bring it into this same kind of network and the kind of space where we're confronting the problems of current disasters in everyday life.